Hello, and welcome to the Investor Guys Podcast, the ultimate podcast for serious real estate investors in the know. Join your host, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills, as they share their expert insights, strategies, and tips to help you succeed in the world of real estate investing. Get ready to level up your investment game with the Investor Guys Podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Bill Barnett and Kevin Mills.
Hello and welcome to Investor Guys Podcast with Kevin Mills and Bill Barnett. How you doing, Bill?
I'm doing terrific, brother. How about you?
Awesome. Had a great weekend here in sunny, hot, humid Florida. How are things going for you in Texas, Central Texas?
Good. It was a tad bit toasty this weekend, but hey, yeah, you come to expect that in the middle of August, the second half of August. And so that was a great weekend. I saw some of your posts with the fam, so that was always fun to see.
We've had a lot of people from California coming out here to Florida to check out Florida because we're getting tired of California. So we're playing host a lot. So we were down in Miami and South Beach and everything else this weekend. Had a great time. In fact, we're headed out after the show to meet up with them over at the mall.
Very cool. We get a lot moving here. I'm not recruiting like you are, but we get a lot moving this way.
I'm just trying to get my friends and family out before the whole place implodes. So
we laugh. We used to, in the last few years, we've laughed a lot in Texas about seceding from the Union and becoming our own country like we were when we came into the U.S., the Republic of Texas. But I think California may have a real shot at
I think California may be kicked out of the Union.
Yeah. And hey, I'd be okay with that.
I would too, especially now that I'm not there anymore.
Get about 150 miles north of San Francisco, and you got a great pocket of good folks there that are all kind of got their head on their shoulders correctly. And then you get a little bit further north and you get up into Portland and Seattle, and it's like, wow, California looks calm compared to those guys. So maybe just take a line from Vancouver down to Mexico and let that be something else.
Yeah, especially the coastal regions, although there are some pockets. I lived in Orange County, and the communities where I lived were very, very, very conservative, which was direct opposition to what the rest of the state was. But politics, they are what they are. There's nothing we can do about them. So we can vote in November, and that's that.
The great thing about real estate is, irrespective of your political beliefs, you got to have a place to live.
Yes.
And we believe that it should be in one of our places. So Kevin and I both agree. Hey.
Yes, but if it's not going to be in one of our places, it should be in one of your own. So today we wanted to talk about something we haven't talked about yet, and that's rental properties for vacation rentals. And this is not a new concept, but because of things like Airbnb and Vrbo, and there's some other ones, there are new options. And a lot of people are getting into this now because of these different options. I have vacation rentals, and I've been doing them on Airbnb and on Vrbo. I'm not doing any more on Vrbo, and I'll talk about that later on in this show as to why. By the way, did you start your timer there, Bill?
I did.
Okay. Keep track because I forgot to start mine. Essentially, if you're not familiar with Airbnb or Vrbo, if you're going to a location for vacation or for work or for whatever else, rather than staying in a hotel or at a resort or something like that, individuals have their own private properties listed so that you can use it as a vacation rental. Now, oftentimes this is somebody's own home, and they're going to be someplace else for that period of time. So I live in Florida. There are a lot of people who are snowbirds. They're back and forth. They live in Florida for the winter, and they live up north someplace for the summer. A lot of those people list their homes here in Florida on Airbnb and Vrbo during the summer. And then they flip it and they list their homes up north on Airbnb and Vrbo while they're here for the winter. Now, what that does is that gets them an income, and a fairly secure income, because both those companies guarantee, they have an insurance policy that guarantees that the tenants aren't going to destroy anything or they're going to pay for it. This gives them additional income, and pretty significant. There are Airbnb rentals in Florida, for example, in Orlando, which is, party central if you have a family during the summer and when there's no coronavirus. They're $1,500 and up a day. There are rentals at the beach. There are sometimes that I get $1,500 and more a day for properties we have at the beach. When this whole coronavirus was in its hot and heavy and no one knew what was going on.
Yesterday.
All of the rental places, Vrbo, Airbnb, all those basically said, don't rent, close everything down. And that's why I'm going to get to why I don't use Vrbo in a minute. We actually used one of our rentals at the beach to get away from the city for coronavirus because we were stuck working from home. So we decided to get out to the beach, hang out at the beach. We had the intercoastal in the backyard. And if you guys watched some of the earlier shows back in May and June, and maybe even
you'll see that.
That's where I was broadcasting from, was the rental property out there. So it's a benefit for you. It's like vacation homes all over the place. And you can use your down weeks and you can use it yourself for getting your family out, sharing it with your family and your friends. You'll be people's new best friend if you've got a house at the beach that they can use every once in a while. Airbnb and Vrbo will let you take reservations up to a year in advance. So I literally will have days and weeks blocked a year in advance. Now, let's talk about how that applies to us as real estate investors. So how many of you would love to have a property where you're making $1,500 a month in rent? Okay. I mean, that's significant for a lot of people. I mean, that's a good rent for the Dallas metro area.
Yep.
Imagine getting $1,500 for a day or two or three, and getting that 3 or 4 times in a month. That is what we're talking about for rentals.
We start to get into the mechanics of this. Let's take a quick break here, and we'll get headlong into the mechanics of being a real estate investor with vacation rentals. Join us right after the break with more Investor Guys podcast. We'll see you on the other side.
reallykevin.com. Weekly recorded coaching sessions. Learn, grow, find resources, opportunities, and more. You'll find it all at reallykevin.com.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
The Investor Guys podcast will be back shortly.
Absolution X, limited editions, lifestyle apparel like none other. Get yours today at absolutionx.com.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
And welcome back to the Investor Guys podcast. We were just getting into Vrbo, Airbnb, and Kevin was showing us, or about to show us, we're going to see those now, some properties that he picked up on Daytona Beach. As we were starting to do the podcast, when we first started doing this, we were talking about these properties. So, Kev, let's see some, brother.
These are, let me grab that for you. Can you see that okay now?
There you go. Nice.
All right. So these units were in Daytona Beach. If you're familiar with Daytona Beach, they are all within 4 or 5 blocks of Main Street. Main Street leads straight into the pier. It is the epicenter of the beach scene for Daytona. These are also within 2 or 3 blocks of the actual beach. You can actually walk to the beach. If you're familiar with Daytona Beach, you can see the giant slingshot from all of these properties at Daytona Beach. Now, all of these properties that I'm going to show you, I got 6 total. I'm going to show you 4 of them. All of them are multifamily units. Now, this right here is a duplex. And if you look behind it, you can see a garage with a unit over top of the garage. Now, all of these were purchased, Bill, for under $30,000 each. They were all vacant, all abandoned properties. All of them need work, but with the amount of work that I'm going to put into them, it's going to be clear profit once the coronavirus is over and people start renting these units. These will rent out $800 to $1,500 a day, especially during spring break.
So what everybody I want you to hear is that Kevin bought at the worst possible time to buy. That's when you want to buy, is when the market's, it's the best time to buy, but the perception of a lot of people is to be the worst possible time to buy because of everything that's going on. No, that's the absolute premium time to be able to buy a property. So before we get off of that other one, ballpark, just a wild guess, what do you think you're going to spend on that to get, so you got a duplex in front, and that's a single unit above the garage?
Single unit above the garage, correct.
All right, so you got 3 units. What do you think you're going to dump into total for the 3 units?
I'm probably going to go a little high end on all of this because I'm going to do the exterior as well. So probably looking at about 60 grand. I have 70 budgeted.
All right, so think about this. Even if he goes 70, he'll have 100 grand in a 3-unit property that's 2 or 3 blocks from the water. And so, and Kev, you said now in a non-spring break time, but yet in summer, what do you think you'll be renting for a week for most of
low end $300 a day?
Okay, so $1,500 to $2,100 a week. And a lot of times, and I know the people that I go down to Destin and do that a lot myself, and the places that I go will not allow you to rent for without paying a crazy number. They want to have a 7-day minimum. So you start looking at that. That's $2,100 a week, and you've got multiple units. So will 2,100 will the garage unit bring 2,100?
The garage, honestly, I will probably keep the garage closed and locked up so that there's no issues with anybody trying to park in there, or who's going to park in there, or anything else. The garage unit is actually probably the biggest unit of the 3. So
if you think about just the duplex part, $4,200 a week, and you may have a 10, 12 week rental period where it's bringing that kind of money. And so if you think about that, so let's just call it a 10-week period that it can bring that. That's $42,000 in one season on an investment that he will have somewhere around, probably under, but somewhere around 100 in. And so in one season alone, 42% payback on what his investment is. So
and realistic, those are low numbers. Excuse me, those are low numbers, Bill. The 300 is
a lot of times people that aren't familiar with what vacation rentals can go for have a hard time wrapping their head around these kind of numbers. So when we were talking about doing some other things early on, and we're going to be talking about those more as the podcast goes on, not today, but as the shows go on, about getting 40, 50, 60, 70% return a year, cash on cash return. Here's another great example of that.
Yeah. During the winter, these units will get 600 to 800 easy each a day. And during spring break, they'll get 1,500 and more a day. And spring break is typically about 4 or 5 weeks here in Florida because everybody takes their spring breaks at different times. So on the low end, we're talking about a 50% return on investment. On a actual, what's probably going to happen when we're not dealing with coronavirus, this will probably pay for itself easily in the first year.
Wow. Very cool. Very cool.
This is a 2-unit here. And I was telling Bill just a little bit ago, there's a weird kind of funky basement thing going on in the front. It's got screens on it. We're going to finish it out, and it's just going to be like a little party. We'll put some little neon signs in there, and it's just going to be a party place for people to hang out and drink their beers and scream at people walking by. Because during spring break, the streets are just mobbed with people. Now for this unit, this is actually a 4-unit with another unit in the back over the garage. Same type of situation. You can see the windows have been taped up. The whole thing is vacant. You can see it's in disrepair. The furniture sitting out in front, I have no idea where that furniture even came from because this place has been vacant for a couple of years. This right here is a 4-unit. There's steps on the side to get to the upstairs units. And this, I've got a side picture of this one as well to give you kind of a better idea. Again, blocks from the beach, blocks from Main Street, which is where the restaurants are, the bars, and we also aren't talking about just spring break. We aren't just talking about snowbirds. We're talking about bike week. We're talking about everything that happens in Daytona, the races. We're talking about, this is the place to have, one of the great places to have rental properties. We have a rental in further north of Daytona in Flagler, and we spent a few months of our coronavirus lockdown there on the beach because we weren't supposed to be renting through Airbnb in Verbo.
Hey, let's take a quick break here before we get going too much further here. We're going to come back with wrapping up Daytona, wrapping up rentals, VRBO, and Airbnb, and why you want to be involved. So stay tuned with more Investor Guys podcast. We'll be right back.
Thank you for watching the Investor Guys podcast.
The Investor Guys podcast will be back shortly.
Absolution X, limited editions, lifestyle apparel like none other. Get yours today at absolutionx.com.
Live the resort lifestyle every day with Cayman K. The perfect pieces for every wardrobe. Shop the entire Cayman K collection and find your favorites. Find all our styles at caymank.com.
Get ready for power, for success, for solutions and answers. It's all in one place, www.reallykevin.com. Education, opportunities, coaching, and so much more.
So welcome back to the Investor Guys podcast. I'm Kevin Mills, and this eager gentleman here is Bill Barnett. And just before we went on the break, we were showing you some houses that I had picked up in Daytona that were going to be rental properties. And I honestly have not been doing the vacation rental thing for very long, just the last maybe 3 or 4 years that I've gotten into it. And I feel like I was a little bit late to the game because I didn't see it coming. I thought I was kind of skeptical when I first started hearing about the Airbnbs and the Verbos and everything else. But when I started looking into it more, I realized the potential that was there, especially for markets where I want to have a property anyway. This is a great way to have a vacation home and let it not only pay for itself, but pay you as well. Airbnb and Verbo both have insurance that will cover any loss or damages as a result of you renting it out to one of the tenants that book on Airbnb and Verbo. They will let you rent a year in advance. Not let you rent, they'll literally, their platform will let the guests rent up to a year in advance. So I literally have reservations a year in advance. And for properties that are in great locations, they're just always booked, just like nonstop, solid booked. I have to block the weeks that I want to use for myself or that I want to share with somebody else. Now, just as we started, I was telling you that I used to use Airbnb and Verbo. I don't use Verbo anymore. The reason for that is as we were going into the coronavirus, there are a lot of people obviously who had vacation plans that were made that got interrupted because of the coronavirus. Verbo, when everybody canceled, Verbo did not return any money to any guests. They left it up to the individuals who own the properties as to whether or not they're going to return that money. The individuals who own the properties, whether they did or didn't, I don't know, but they should have returned the money. But Verbo should have made sure that that money was returned. Airbnb stepped up. They returned the money to all the guests who had to cancel, and they gave 60% of the lost revenue to the owners of the properties for the cancellations. So they literally out of their own pockets stepped up and made sure that both sides were taken care of. And to me, that is a good business model. That is ethical. That is honest. I would rather work with a company like that than work with a company that's going to leave somebody high and dry. Now, I'm a property owner, but I'm also a renter. I also use Airbnbs, and I also used to use Verbos, just as Bill just mentioned that he does invest in as well. As a property owner, yeah, sure, it's great that Verbo didn't make us return any money. But as a guest, that's wrong. And as a person who I think everything should be ethical and everything should be fair, that just didn't sit right with me. So Verbo is a company I won't use anymore, just based on their ethical business model. But that's it in a nutshell. I mean, obviously there's more to it, but this should give you an idea of the potential that you can make on vacation rentals. Now, if you are in any market, this is something that you can use. But if you're in a market like, say, Southern California or Galveston or Destin or here on the Florida coast where I am, Orlando, New York City, any major city for that matter, this is a strategy that will put not only money in your pocket, it'll pay for the unit that you have really quickly. There are some hurdles to go through. You have to have a business license for each one of these properties, but it is worth it. Questions, Bill? Thoughts and comments?
No, I was just going to say, you know what? It's surprising that even in a city like Dallas-Fort Worth, which is not thought of typically as a destination location, we have a pretty strong, thriving Airbnb business here. So every city that has any type of attraction to it, for us, it's people coming in to do business. And if they're going to be here more than a couple of days, a lot of people just prefer to have a house. And so the Airbnb option has become really terrific to be in that environment.
Yeah, it is really, as a traveler, there are times I want to stay in a hotel. There are times I want to stay in a resort. If I have to be in town for business, and we see this a lot of times, like especially in Dallas, somebody's coming into town and they have to be there for a month because they have a project that they have to take care of. They don't want to be living out of a suitcase in a hotel. They'd rather unpack their clothes, hang them up, put them in a drawer, and be there for that month for that project, be able to go into the kitchen, make themselves breakfast, buy themselves groceries, sit at a table and work on their computer, rather than have to do all that from the business center, eat at the restaurant at the hotel, have to keep their clothes packed up in the suitcase. So again, anywhere you go, this is a solid option. Just go on to Airbnb.com and check out what rentals are going for in the area where you want to have these rentals. That'll give you an idea of the potential that you can make. Flip through, go through the seasons and see what people are getting for various seasons, because you'll see prices fluctuate from $300 a day to $2,000 a day, depending upon where you are.
And you're going to see as we get back to normal, I hate even saying that.
Whatever the normal is going to be.
Yeah, gosh, sporting events are going to start being attended again. And the great thing about one of the things that's going on right now is that NBA, MLB, they're suffering horribly because they've made these political stance. And so they can't have anybody in the concessions. And people go, well, they make all the money off TV anyway. No, the owners get a lot of their operating budget off of people being in the stands and all of that concession money. So professional sports will demand that we get back to being able to have people in the stands, and colleges and universities are going to demand that as well as this thing moves on. And so think about a year from now, when we're back into seasons, and the likelihood is, no guarantee, but the likelihood is we're going to have full stadiums again of people being there. I had a guy send me something yesterday that said, hey, I'm really disappointed in you, Bill. And I'm like, what? And he goes, I know last year you didn't wear a mask at all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, well, there were 1.5 million people in the U.S. that died of tuberculosis last year, and I didn't see you wearing a mask over that. And I was like, oh, yeah, okay, I get it. So
or the flu.
Political stuff is all going to go away on this after the election. I pray either way. And we're going to have people in stadiums again. So if you've got a property in where a city is, like Arlington, if you've got a property within 20 miles of Cowboy Stadium, there's another few weekends a year that you can get some crazy numbers on it. And in what typically in the Dallas-Fort Worth area would be off-season, would be fall and winter. So great place to be, great place to put some investment money. Yeah, Ken, you got anything you want to wrap up on? We're running a little
Actually,
long.
no, I was going to, on the professional sports, to put things into perspective, I do hear that. They make all their money on TV. Think about the revenue they lose just on parking. Every single one of those parking spaces that they fill up on, because they turn you away and tell you there's no more parking. That's $20 a space and up. Preferred parking is even more. That's $20 for each one of those spaces that they lose. It's $5 a hot dog. How much of that is going to the owners of the stadium? You know, beers, how much of that revenue goes to the stadium? They make millions of dollars every single game just by having fans in the stands. So that will come back. Trust me, the owners want that to happen more than anybody.
So that's going to open up, business is going to be reestablished. If we have to wear a mask to go to a game, maybe we wear a mask to go to a game, but they're going to put butts back in the seat. You can mark your words on that. It will happen. It's not going to happen this season, but it will happen next season. A lot of it depends on what's going to happen with the colleges, because the colleges are putting butts in seats. I don't know what the NFL is going to do, but colleges, the Southeastern Conference is running 20-25% of their stadium capacity so that they can do social distancing. Everybody's going to be in a mask, and they're open air environments. So some of those are going to be test runs for what's going to happen for pro sports going forward. We're way over today. Thanks so much for being with us.
One final thought. Vacations. No one's ever going to get rid of vacations. We're in Florida. We are still renting out Airbnbs and Verbos and everything else. Orlando is open. Universal Studios is open. SeaWorld is open. Disney World is open. Orlando is open. The beaches in Florida are open. Miami is open. It's 50% outside, but Miami's the only city in Florida that is like that. The whole rest of Florida is pretty much wide open. Vacations are still going on. Professional sports is going to throw that additional wallop into certain markets. This is a market that you should be looking at and considering as you start getting into your real estate investing strategies that you want to use. Thank you for joining us, Bill. I'll see you later. Have a great day.
Got it, brother.
In the Investor Guys podcast, and you can catch us online, and we'll see you again soon.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for tuning in to the Investor Guys podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget to subscribe and stay updated on the latest trends and insights in the world of real estate investing. Also, don't forget to check us out and see all of our episodes at theinvestorguyspodcast.com. Email us, contact@investorguyspodcast.com. Remember, the key to financial success lies in staying informed and taking action. Stay tuned for our next episode, and until then, happy investing.